Good morning, students. So, welcome to the second lecture of the subject Labor Legislation Unit 1. So, I hope you are understanding the concept we have started in yesterday's class about the meaning of labor legislation. We have discussed about what are the objectives of labor legislation. We have discussed what are the principles of labor legislation, and then we have discussed about Factories Act 1948 and some previous acts before that. Then we have discussed what are the silent features of this act. We have discussed. Then, okay, so just a minute. We have also discussed what is the meaning of occupier and who is the occupier. We have discussed what is the definition of factory. We have discussed this much. So in today's class, we'll be starting the second act, that is Industrial Dispute Act 1947. So, this initially to solve the disputes in the industry, organization used to apply Trade Dispute Act 1929. There were many shortcomings for this particular act, which includes imposition of the certain restrictions or right of strike and lockouts in the public utility services, and there were no other provisions related to this. So this particular Industrial Act 1940, that is Industrial Dispute Act 1947, came into picture. So this is what I can talk about, introduction about this act. Next is what is industrial dispute. Industry means what? So industry will bifurcate, will divide this particular word. What is industry? Industry is a group of companies doing a similar kind of a business activities. And what is dispute? Dispute is where is there is a disagreement, where there is something mishappenings, there is something where people are not able to connect with each other due to some issues. So that is what industrial dispute. So it can be disagreeableness about any matter among the employees working at the organization. That can be because of poor condition or at the workplace, or it can be because of some kind of a partiality happenings at the organization. So when we are discussing this particular act, there is one more uh, term is used, that is adjudication. Okay, this is what does it mean? Adjudication means it is a third party. When both parties involved in the differences to solve the issue, they approach government for the settlement. That is third party. So that third party solves the issue, or the why we need that we require the third party to solve the issue, and why we need to solve the or resolve this particular disputes in the industry, because automatically this will disturb the entire process of the organization, right? So this is what we have discussed about Industrial Dispute Act 1947. Next is what are the silent features of Industrial Dispute Act 1947. So it came into picture on 1st April 1947. It is applicable to entire country, including the Jammu and so it includes even the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Industrialists and their workmen are directly affected by the industrial law. Dissatisfaction of the economic condition is the root cause of industrial disputes. So, I have jotted down some important points while discussion of this particular features or silent features of Industrial Dispute Act. So it can be, I have jotted down some different points, such as any industrial dispute may be referred to an individual tribunal by an agreement of parties to the dispute, or by the state government if it expedient so to do. So, and secondly, and reward shall be binding on both the parties to the disputes for the specified period, not even that exceeding 1 year. It shall be normally enforced by the government. Next is strikes and lockouts are prohibited by this particular act. It applies, as I have said, it applies all over the country, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It encourages arbitration over the dispute between the employers and employees. This act emphasizes on compulsory adjudication besides conciliation and voluntary arbitration of the industrial disputes. As I have previously explained, one important term, that is adjudication, where we are taking help of government to resolve the issues or disputes at the organization place. Next is this act emphasis on compulsory. I have already discussed about this particular feature. Next is the right to strike by the workers and the lockouts by the employees has been subjected to restrictions as laid down in the act. And the right to strike by the workers and lockouts by the employees has been it has been as I have said, it has been subjected to law laid down. So this act has made a provision for compensation to the workmen in case of even at the time of transfer, or at the time of closure of the organization. So this is what are the features, or I can say silent features of Industrial Act. Next is, what are the objectives of this Industrial Dispute Act? We'll be discussing what are the objectives of this particular act. I have jotted down some important points. So, whenever you are writing any objective, make sure you are using initially, or you are using two, right? So, for example, to promote measures for securing good relations between employers and employees, to minimize the difference and to resolve the disputes with the help of adjudicatory authorities. Okay, to prevent illegal strikes and lockouts, to provide relief in the case of layoffs, retrenchment, or any kinds of wrongful dismissals, and to provide right of collective bargaining. What is collective bargaining? So it is a source of solving certain problems which are arising at the organization place, where we are negotiating, where we are understanding each other's situation, and we are ready to compromise in some other way. So this is what the collective bargaining. Next is to provide good working conditions. So these are what some of the important objectives of this Industrial Dispute Act. Uh, Next is, we'll be discussing about what are the forms of disputes. First is strike. So as per section 2, clause Q of the Industrial Dispute Act defines strike to mean a cessation of work by a body of a persons employed in any industry acting in combination or concerted refusal. So strike is somewhere where employees are not happy with the work, or they are having certain kind of problems, so they have the right to raise voice against it. If something is mishappening at the organization, they have a right to raise the voice against that particular mishappening. So that is what a strike, where employees are coming together and they are doing strike. They are standing against a particular concept. Next is lockout. So as per section 2, subsection 1 of the Industrial Dispute Act 1947 defines lockout to mean the temporary closing of employment or the suspension of the work, or a refusal by an employer to continue to employ or employ any number of persons employed by him. So it can be a temporary closing, where it can be, for example, suspension. If you are suspending a person because he had done something mischief behavior, so we can suspend him for a particular, for we can say for 1 month, or we can say 15 days. So that is what the suspension is the one more kind of a dispute. Next is, we have Gario. So that is when we are talking about this particular Gario, it means encirclement of the managers to criminally intimidate him to accept the demand of the workers. Okay, so it can understood with by the help of definition. Next is layoff. So layoff, for the best example for layoff is climatical conditions. I'll give you example. Suppose in the case of rainy season, umbrellas can be sold very easily. But can you think that it will be so easy in the season of summer as well? No. So that is what layoffs. So I just gave an example of this. So it can be in the, when it comes to organization, it can be because of shortage of certain raw materials, certain natural resources such as coal, power, raw materials, anything. So or it can be breakdown of the machinery. So that due to that reason, employment, particular employment activity gets stopped. So that is what the layoff. So next is, there are some important terms which are used under Industrial Dispute Act 1947. We have discussed a few definitions under the Factories Act 1948 as well. So in this also we have some definitions. First is appropriate government. First is appropriate government. So it refers, as per section 2 clause A, it refers to central government or the state government. Appropriate government can be, it can be a central government as well as a state government. Next is arbitrator. As per section 2 clause A, so it referred as an umpire. It means any person who is appointed to determine differences and disputes between two parties. Next is wages. Section 2 clause RR. It means all remuneration capable of being expressed in terms of money, if the term of employment were fulfilled, be payable to a workman in respect of his employment or of work done in such employment. So these are the definitions. So we can't write it in our own words, but we can understand these terms in own words. Okay, so wages are, as you know, workers gets the daily wages or it can be a weekly wages. Next is, what is the definition, what is the definition of industry? So as per section 2 clause I, industry means any systematic activities carried on by a cooperation between an employer and his workmen, whether such workmen are employed by such employee directly or by or through any agency, including a contractor, for production, supply or distribution of goods or services with a view to satisfy human wants or wishes, with a motive to make any gain or profit, not merely spiritual or religious. So I have this was the definition. So whenever there is a question, write definition, you have to write the definitions. When it is meaning, you can write it in your own words. Okay, so this is what the definition of industry. In short, I have I think previously told you, industry is a group of companies who are doing similar business, similar, who are carrying out similar business activities. Okay, so next I can say example, textile industries. So all textile companies will come under the textile industries. Next is the definition of workman. As per section 2 clause S, it means any person, including an apprentice employed in any industry to do any manual, unskilled, skilled, technical, operational, clerical or supervisory work for hire or reward, the terms of employment be expressed or implied, and there should be a contractual relationship between master and servant. So workmen can be like, you people may have studied about the different levels. You people have may studied about the different levels of the management. So it can be a top, mid level management and lower level management. So when it is a top level management, when I'm talking about the top, it can include any directors or any managers. Middle will include any supervisors, and then lower will includes uh, any technical people who are working, who are at the lower level, who are unskilled laborers. So it includes everything, it includes every part of the employment. So this is what the workmen. So this is what we have discussed in today's class. I'll just brief it out what we have discussed in today's class. That is industrial dispute. We have discussed Industrial Dispute Act 1947. We have started some kind of a introduction about this topic. Then we have discussed about this particular act definition. Then we have discussed what are the silent features of this Industrial Dispute Act 1947. Then we have discussed what are the different objectives of Industrial Dispute Act 1947. Then we have discussed what are the different forms forms of dispute. What are the different forms, or it can be parts of dispute, which can be also called as dispute. So it is, first one we have discussed is a strike, next is a lockout, then we have discussed about carryo, we have discussed this particular concept as a carryo and layoff. Next is we have also discussed some important terms or definition of some important terms as per the Industrial Dispute Act, where we have discussed about what is appropriate government, what is arbitrator, what is wages. Then we have discussed what is the definition of industry. We have discussed what is the definition of workman. So this is what I think this particular subject or this particular acts had a lot of explanation. So but for you people, there is you will be getting only features, objectives of these acts. So I have just explained what are the introduction about the both the acts, and I have explained what are the objectives, I have explained the silent features of this act. So if you people have any kinds of doubt, please do ask, and make sure like you are understanding the concepts. And let me know if you want any for any more explanation about any concept, so that I'll just add those extra details if you want. Okay, so this is what for the today's class. We'll discuss remaining aspects in the next class. So thank you.